When you were in your 20s and you were envisioning the life ahead of you, what is it that you predict? Did you think about what it might look like? And is it at all similar to where you are today?
No, I didn't think anything like SpaceX and Tesla would happen. I turned 30 in 2001. SpaceX was formed in 2002, and then Tesla was really technically incorporated in 2003, but really didn't get going until 2004. So I think 2004 is a more accurate date for Tesla than 2003. And both SpaceX and Tesla, when they started, I thought both would probably fail. I gave them less than a 10% chance of succeeding. But I made quite a bit of money from PayPal. I was the largest shareholder in PayPal. I had about $180 million, and it's obviously a lot of money. So I figured I'd just effectively just waste half of it on this foolish rocket and electric car companies. And it turned out they needed basically all of the money. So then I ended up giving all of the money to SpaceX and Tesla and some of it to City. And they're still almost going bankrupt in both cases. I just really wanted to be involved in technologies that would change the world. That was my only real goal.
Certainly did do that. Do you think there's anything that people might misunderstand about you?
No, nothing at all.
I think I detect some sexual device.
No, me, sarcasm, me, never. I couldn't think of something sarcastic.
Well, it's difficult because I find, even on the small scale that I've experienced it, like I find it very difficult when people misunderstand something about me or misjudge me. And so I kind of want to correct them. And have you sort of let that go? I know.
There's so much printed about me that I actually I can't even read it all. But if I would take a large portion of my day to simply to read all of the nonsense articles that are written about me or have been written about me over the years, I find the regular news or what I call the legacy media depressing, and often or speaking of misinformation, it's remarkable how often there is just misinformation or just sloppy information printed in some of the biggest publications in the world. The Wall Street Journal has, I think, now printed 3 articles claiming that I'm high all the time, which is really, I guess, a compliment because...
I mean, you are high in the sky.
Yes. From an altitude standpoint, I'm certainly high a lot because I'm flying around like a lunatic, working, by the way, not, going to my yacht or private island. I don't have a private island or yacht or even a holiday home. In fact, someone looked at my flight schedule and put it to pinball music, because I was flying around, fast around, literally my flight path looked like a pinball machine, which I think, really makes it clear that you do have to be at work in person. You can't actually work from home and be as effective. This is the whole work from home thing. Well, if I could work from home, why am I flying around all the time? I fly around all the time because it makes a big difference to be there in person. And I've spent many a night in the factory at Tesla or SpaceX, and mostly Tesla, because Tesla's been much more of a challenge on the manufacturing front. And just Tesla's just in general been much more of a drama queen, if that's still a thing one can say. Drama king queen. Drama monarch.
Yes, that's fair. And shitposting Lord, I think. I think that's the official title. I've heard that said in the media. So, it must be true.
Drama.
I like that, yeah.
So, yeah, but it does really matter to be there in person. I'm actually on my way to California for SpaceX and Tesla meetings, primarily Tesla, actually. And so...
It's one of those things where I do think, like, our humanity, I do think we need some face-to-face. I am breezy and I love working from home, but I also need to see people and you can't really brainstorm with people not face-to-face. But in terms of you've stated many times that you're a free speech absolutist and you bought this platform at least in part to set the birds free. And I believe there's even many memes on that. So it's been about 1.5 years. And I'm wondering, through this experience, have you learned anything about speech on social media platforms that surprised you? And do you think there is a degree that's necessary, in a private platform for a good user experience?
Well, I mean, it's been many things that surprised me. I mean, the amount of government control, the degree to which Twitter was acting at the behest of many arms of the government was a surprise to me. They really were, in my view, there were many violations of the First Amendment, which I think you're in Canada, but there is, there's no actual First Amendment in Canada, but there certainly is one in the US. And, and the government cannot exercise de facto control of the media. And the reason that amendment was put in place is because people came from countries where you were forbidden to speak on penalty of prison or death. And so they wanted to have the ability to say what they, to speak freely without fear of severe punishment, or at least not from the government. So that was, that was really a very troubling discovery. And then I think obviously anyone who watches that Twitter was very much controlled by far left activists. very far left. And, it was really controlled by a niche ideology that geographically is limited to the city of San Francisco and Berkeley. Not even, it doesn't even extend to the city of South San Francisco, or certainly not even to Palo Alto. A far left niche ideology that would ordinarily be geographically contained was effectively piping that what most people consider an extreme, what most of the world, 99% of the world consider extremist ideology was meant to anywhere on Earth that would allow Twitter to exist. So that, I felt it was effectively worm tongue to the world, and something needs to be done about that. I felt it was actually a civilizational risk. I think if the United States does fall, that would be, sometimes people think, well, they'll escape to New Zealand or some other place. It's like, that's not realistic. Canada will, if the United States falls, Canada's going to become a province of Russia. And I don't know what's going to happen to the other countries, but they survive under the protective umbrella of the United States. The United States is a central tent pole that holds up the entire edifice of Western civilization. We have to make sure that the United States is strong, that it remains a democracy, and free speech is the bedrock of a functioning democracy. You cannot have a true democracy unless people can say that they want to say and can learn the truth of things. Because otherwise you're making your vote based on a lack of information or a distorted view of it, and which can make the vote effectively meaningless because you don't know what to vote on what basis to make your vote. So I think this is something that is extremely important, and that's the reason for requiring Twitter. And I think we do want a fresh start, hence the different branding, and also X is going to be a much broader system than Twitter, which is a name that last made sense when you're doing 140 character or short textual tweets. It was a bit like words twittering away. But once you start having 3-hour videos and audio video calling, and we'll be launching payments later this year, then the name no longer fits. It would be like naming a company that has a broad range of products after one product. It really makes sense to do that. And I think we want to sort of put the, three the word and let it fly free and be something else. So,
well, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's sort of the reasoning for it.
But do you feel that maybe like having now had ownership of it for a while, you do have some regulations on the platform on, certain type of speech, and they're not all things that necessarily go against the law, right? Like obviously you can't threaten someone with violence. Some of the moderation on the platform isn't really to do with things that are illegal. Like, what's your perspective on that?
Actually, we really should be adhering as close to the law as possible, and really being extremely, I think, reluctant to have permanent bans on people. Because I think a permanent ban is almost like a death sentence. That should be a very rare thing. It's like we, and we're less civilized as a society, we would execute people for minor crimes. And now it comes to the conclusion, well, that's wrong. The crime should, people should be incarcerated for some period of time, but not forever, and they shouldn't be executed unless it's in a very extreme circumstance. So I think that's kind of what we should be doing. Now, that doesn't mean at the same time that you just get to harass other people on the platform. They obviously have the ability to mute you. I'm getting around to getting rid of the block, but having a stronger mute. So like if you really don't want to hear from someone, there's not some way to get around the mute. You can just mute them entirely. So in general, if we are suspending people for or accounts for reasons that will go beyond the law, I'd like to know about that, because I don't think we should be suspending people for reasons that whether there's not a probable legal infraction.
Yeah, I guess my thinking around that, let's shift a bit. So I used to be, I think really much more of a free speech absolutist, and to some extent I still am. But when it comes to private platforms or just my engagement, because I used to respond to anybody, no matter how they spoke to me. So I well, if they're not coming in good faith, I can disagree with them on what they say, but if they're not coming in good faith, if they're rude, if they're attacking me, if they're disingenuous, I don't feel like I have a responsibility to engage with them.
You certainly don't.
Yeah.
And you should have the ability to mute them and have them not bother you. And, and if I guess if we do see that there's like a coordinated attack to effectively squash free speech on the platform, then that would certainly be reasons for at least a temporary suspension of the accounts that engaged in that behavior. And then those temporary suspensions would grow in length. Kind of like when you type in your password too many times in your phone, it gives you longer and longer times. You can't just brute force hack it. So we have a system now where it's give people a short suspension, then a longer suspension. Eventually, the suspension length gets longer and longer if they keep doing it. And hopefully that serves as a deterrent to, bad behavior. But permanent suspensions really need to be a situation where someone is engaged in, obviously fraud or threatening, like unequivocally threatening violence, doing things that are just obviously illegal.
Do you have enough people, you think, to be able to handle that? Or do you foresee using AI to handle, things like threats, like things that are in direct violation?
It's not a number of people thing. I think we're all reorganizing the company, and we're all bringing, a lot of the work is done by sort of contractors in other countries, like for English language moderation. And they sometimes just don't understand the context of what's being said. So we'll get too many false positives or false negatives where they should be doing someone a temporary suspension and they're not, or they suspend someone because they don't understand that it's an idiomatic expression. They don't actually mean that literally. So we are building up a general team based in the US that I think we better have a better understanding of when is somebody really threatening violence versus simply a figure of speech. It's not simply a matter of quantity. It matters that people understand this, what's going on. Also, the whole sort of reporting framework is Byzantine, like the whole flow of how accounts are reported and then what is done is extremely complex and difficult to understand, even if you're, fully aware of, say, U.S. colloquialisms. Anyway, so we're building up an internal team, and I think we'll be using that more and more, which should help improve the quality of moderation. I always, of course, about moderation. It's like all things moderation, especially moderation, because moderation is often used as a censorship. I mean, like when, obviously when organizations seek to engage in propaganda, they naturally use misleading terms because they are engaged in propaganda. In fact, I don't even really like the name trust and safety as an organization. I mean, that's something that would fit very well in a George Orwell book. Generally, I think it's like customer service or, not much moderation.
It's true. I mean, I agree with you about the words that are being used. I don't think that they're always intended to be propaganda. I think it's something that sort of starts as part of the culture, and then there's this sort of feel like you have to use them. Obviously, I've been in mainstream journalism for many years. It's not like anybody's ever said to me, "Hey, Catherine, you need to use these particular words," but you see them around and you see what each publication uses. And something that you are sort of taught is that you write in the voice of that publication. And so it becomes more dominant. This new language becomes more and more dominant, and people don't really think so much about why are we using these words? Why have they changed, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's almost like a tempting fate to name something trust and safety. It's inevitably going to be kind of the opposite. I think you want to have a neutral term as opposed to something which, if there was a ministry of trust and safety, would you trust that?
Now we're talking rebellion.
Yeah. I wouldn't trust a ministry called Trust and Safety in a million years.
No, that's fair. And I think, look, when the whole Twitter files thing came out, for me, I'm comfortable with some moderation, but I'm also okay with not. I think life could go either way. However, when you have the private entity, I think you have the right to do what you want. But when you have government organizations specifically telling you what to do, that to me, like that is where we are looking at censorship. Even if they don't say, well, you have to do it or else, there's an implied threat there. But, I'm looking.
Agree.
Yeah, well, but where I'm sort of struggling lately, people have always said, sunshine is the best disinfectant, as a liberal, it's always like freedom of speech is so fundamental in my very left-leaning schools. That's what I was taught, and that was the value we had. And I still, obviously believe a lot in that. But when I think about social media structures, right, there's a lot of incentives that are for telling lies. And it's not just the media, social media, and it's not just X either. It's what it is, every social media structure, and it's humans, right? Humans have a tendency to amplify things that are sensational. There's incentivized outrage. And so I don't know, considering that is the case, do you still feel that statement about the sunshine being the best disinfectant still holds true when you have basically, lies spreading very quickly? And I know you've tried to do really good, I'm a big fan actually of community notes. And I think that's one of the, you can help that, but by providing people with more information rather than censoring whatever, even if it's a lie. But do you think that structure, appeals to truth finding, I guess, truth seeking, in the sense that it's when things are exposed, you should be coming to the truth should come to the surface, but clearly it doesn't always, right?
Well, I think honesty is the best policy, actually. And you have to make a choice here. Nothing's going to be perfect. Do you want to err on the side of free speech or on the side of censorship? I think we should err on the side of free speech. And while it is true that lies are often sensationalized and more interesting than the truth, over time, if we have free speech, we can at least get to the truth if they want to. But if you've got human censors, well, then you're relying on them. And often they're wrong. And it becomes a magnet for activists, for people who in fact want to distort the truth. This is really the problem with having moderation, aka censorship, is that those who wish to distort the truth will naturally gravitate to positions of power and information control. So am I spacing?
Yeah. No,
Yeah. So this is what happened at Twitter. It didn't start out with activists being in control, but it ended up with them being in, because that's what they literally, it's like, that's the classic say of Willie Loman. Why did you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is. Well, so why did the activists go to become, of course, moderators and censors? Because that's where the influence is. So you can pretty much guarantee that it will be a magnet, that any kind of censorship or moderation is going to be a magnet for people who want to distort and control the truth. That is what happened at Twitter. I mean, Yoel Roth, literally, I believe he actually tweeted that the reason he wanted to be in charge of trust and safety was because he wanted to be an activist. Like, I think he said that publicly.
I guess that's a good segue into journalism, because, this is something that I'm seeing more, kind of came up with. I had really people who value truth and called me out when I, BS my way in coffee and asked the right questions. But I have seen sort of the incentive to go into journalism, especially because it's not a highly paying field, right? So why would you go into it? You either really love something about it, or you want to, you want to have a cause. And so this kind of activist journalist emerged. So as a result, I do see a lot of issues that we have these days as a result. But you've spoken a lot about citizen journalism, and I've always been really supportive of the idea of citizen journalism. But at the same time, there is this sort of mainstream media does still have really good structures for collecting news, has the resources, has some sort of editorial standard, but it has undoubtedly lost a lot of trust. Do you see, citizen journalism as being potentially just complementary? Do you see it as something do you see a way forward where the traditional mainstream media can rebuild that trust that a lot of it has lost? Because I still think there's good work that some journalists do and some publications do. It's just, there's also a lot that I think is fair to criticize.
I think actually that the legacy media, I don't think it's correct to refer them as legacy media. It's really an inefficient way of humanity learning what is going on. It's an old technology that was necessary before you had the internet, but it is, I think, fundamentally inefficient and inferior to simply everyone voicing their opinion and the most interesting opinions being surfaced. But if you think, if you say like, well, just model, how does the media work? There's a small number of prominent publications that write a small number of articles. They write articles about areas that they don't actually understand and where they're often not there. They're usually not there as a field they don't understand. So in the best case scenario, you've got someone who, this is assuming that the journalist is doing their absolute best to write an accurate article about something. They're still not an expert in the field, and they still, in vast majority of cases, weren't actually there. So the best case of that article is really going to be pretty bad. That's why, if you really want to understand like how accurate is any given article, well, when you see an article that you actually understand the field or you know what actually happened, how accurate is that article? It's usually, you read it and say, that's actually not at all what happened. That's usually how it goes. Well, that's true for all the articles. It's not just true for the things that you're an expert in. It's true for all the articles. If instead we have a vastly larger number of people who are expert in the field, who were there or literally are there right now, you've got, 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 times more sources of information. Sources of information are about to be more accurate because they're experts in the field or are literally there. And it's really not something that legacy media can compete with. Think of like legacy media is like the fax machine or like writing letters, like with a pen and paper compared to the internet. Like how many people used to communicate by writing letters because that was the only technology available at the time. So they write letters and back in the day it was with a quill. Quite difficult to write a letter with a quill. And then you'd have a very slow, often your mail would get lost. But this is literally how the world communicated. It was like writing a letter. They would have to be then carried by someone on a horse from one person to another. In the old days, when they would declare war, half the country wouldn't even know that war had been declared because they didn't get the mail. So and even in the U.S. Civil War, there were battles that took place well after there was a peace deal signed because they actually didn't know that a peace deal had been signed. In fact, one of the last battles of the Civil War, I think maybe the last, was right near our Starbase launch site in South Texas. And they fought a battle because they didn't realize that the sides had actually declared peace. So that's kind of what you have with some version of that with the legacy media.
I
It's
would
also,
challenge one thing though. Speed is not always, I think, king. I mean, obviously you want breaking news to happen quickly and it's important when it does, and I think AI is going to help to some extent, but the reporting on the ground is really important. But when you go at a really high speed, you also have more chances of getting something wrong, right? So when you have things travel really quickly and you've got the wrong information, I mean, sometimes that information can even lead to potential death or people making very bad decisions because they're relying on information that wasn't vetted. And even with journalists, right? Like you see that happening. They might see a source for a story and then they'll copy it and there's broken telephone going around and because it's traveling too fast and people are trying to get it out too fast and they haven't properly verified the information. So I think it's important to sort of keep that in mind, especially when it comes to important stories, right?
yeah, well, I mean, the media the legacy media has a shrinking pie problem where the revenue is decreasing, views are decreasing. So they're actually desperate to get news out first. You get news out even a few hours later, you're going to get much less attention. So this has actually led to a radical reduction in the quality of information made by legacy media. But for legacy media, the ability to actually correct things is basically zero. They can technically run a retraction, a week later that nobody reads. Whereas the fast news online or like on the X platform is corrected immediately. So yes, there may be and often are wrong things that are said, but then they're just as quickly corrected. And the same cannot be said of legacy media that's printed.
In some cases, it's corrected. Like if the community note, for example, goes through. And by the way, I mean, and this is not just an X situation, right? There's other social media platforms that don't have things like community notes. So I find that things do spread very quickly and there isn't always a mechanism for corrections. And I think, look, community notes it may be imperfect, but I think there's a lot that it do and a lot of areas where it can grow to do better on the correcting of information. So I think, and I agree with you that with, one thing that I have a significant issue with is that a lot of times when a media outlet makes a mistake, even if they do correct it, no one sees that correction and there's no sort of accountability. Like I'd like them to publish and say, we've made this many errors today and, this month and be really accountable about it to the readers. Cause I think it would also benefit them because it will build trust. Do you see a world where, you take like one thing that I've really enjoyed on X and other X, because that's really the dominant platform for me. But when there is breaking news of some sort, you can get like really interesting people breaking it down. So you might have somebody who has expertise in a particular area or maybe lives in a particular region. And it gives me this kind of enhanced idea of what's going on in the news. So to me, I see it as something that the citizen journalism aspect of it or the community aspect of it is something that to me seems like a great potential enhancement to traditional media. And perhaps there is a way for it to work better together. Do you see that, or do you see social media completely replacing sort of the conventional media format?
Independent of what I think, what has actually happened and will happen increasingly over time is it's sort of like trying to argue that people should go from having email back to writing letters and mailing physical letters. It's simply not going to happen. So it's not even, I'm simply describing that legacy media is a legacy. It's an inefficient and very slow means of disseminating information. And, like civilization is kind of a group mind for humanity. The efficiency of really close to this kind of like a neuron in a giant brain. And the effectiveness of that brain is going to be a function of how well those neurons fire, how quickly they fire, how quickly information goes around and is corrected. And I think legacy media can no more compete with internet media than written letters can compete with email. That's what we just, in fact, it doesn't mean that nobody writes letters anymore. There are some letters written, but they are niche. And legacy media is niche and will become even more niche. That's just a statement of fact. It's whether I want it to be true or not.
I understand what you're saying. I feel as though there's certain things that media institutions do better than, for example, if somebody is just on social media, and some people are spectacular, right? Some people produce incredible content. They take hundreds of hours to do it. So there's always exceptions. But if you wanted to report on a story, like I know as a journalist, it takes me a very long time. Basically, in proportion to how much I'm paid for a story, it sort of gives me an ability to spend more time researching it, speaking to more sources, really going to the places. So there's certain kinds of journalism where it's like, say, investigative pieces that I think you have a higher chance of getting a really good story that, a publication might invest in, just kind of like a movie studio invests in Oscar kind of bait movies, even though it's not a money leader for them, right? Because they want that sort of reputational, they want to have that reputation for good movies, same as they want reputation for good journalism. And I don't know how that would translate to social media form, where people don't necessarily have those kinds of resources, including just time.
If somebody is actually an expert in the field or literally was there, it takes very little effort for them to actually describe the situation. It's much harder for someone who wasn't there or is not an expert in the field to attempt to become at least a slight expert in the field or interview a whole bunch of people who were there. What I'm saying is that is no longer necessary. You can now hear directly from world-class experts. As on X, you can hear directly from the best AI scientists and engineers in the world, directly from them, immediately.
But that information, and in some ways it's good, that information isn't filtered, it's uncensored. And at the same time, when you have a good journalist, that person should be good at discerning, who's a really interesting expert, and let's bring different diverse points of views into the story. So it's more than just, one person's opinion or a few random people's opinions who might have expertise, but, haven't done like a full sampling.
Well, like I said, I think the debate is somewhat moot because what I'm describing is simply what is happening and whether one likes it or not. Like I said, legacy media is like the written letter, like mailing letters written with a quill or pen or something versus email. It's not that there are no more letters, but email is vastly more efficient, faster. And that's just legacy media. It's just an old technology. I think it's kind of absurd that we print out newspapers still after all this time. My son Saxon, he was having profound observations in the world, was sort of walking through the airport and saw, it was a Wall Street Journal or something that had that day's date printed on it. And he was like, wow, how did they know it was today? I was like, no, Saxon, they print that out every day. They make that newspaper every day. He's like, what? So you can sort of see the absurdity of from a child. Like, they print this out every day. And then he said, well, they probably just read the internet and print it out. And I said, yes, that is indeed what most newspapers do. They simply read it out.
That is such a good description. Kids are very good at this, I have to say. They discern things in the most simple, honest way, don't they?
That's the vast majority of news is they read something on the internet, write an article and print it out. So that's just the vast majority of news, so-called news. And very often it is in fact some ex post that they're writing an article about.
Yeah, look, I certainly have my criticisms. I'm also, a biased observer, given that I am a writer. So, I am a little invested in saving journalism in some way. Though I do think there's ways to move forward that are different than what is now, because it's not working as well as I wish it was. One thing that I noticed, so you engage a lot on this platform. You are very active. Everyone knows. I don't even want to guess how much time you spent, in the golden stool tweeting. But in terms of one thing that you have is, as the owner of this platform and, somebody with a big following, is that you can amplify both certain ideas and people. And you do. And, I know there's been a lot of criticism in particular, both about the ideas that you choose to amplify and the people that maybe, might have checklists of whatnot, when the same point could potentially be made without them. And I'm just wondering, how much thought do you even put into that? Do you think, I can't take this person and, I'm not going to not a literal Nazi, but you know what I mean? Or are people, how much thought do you give this at all?
It's it may sound sort of esoteric, but what I'm really trying to achieve here is to improve the signal to noise of the collective consciousness. So, and the bandwidth. Think of the X platform as being, all these humans connected in the same way, or similar way to a collection of neurons in the brain. You want to improve how, the increased signal, reduce noise, and just have that collective brain be better. This is why when you think of it that way, the absurdity of legacy media becomes apparent, because it's slow and it goes through a few choke points. Number of articles is tiny. It's just obviously not the future. So I'm trying to create here, over time, a collective consciousness that can think more clearly, that can think faster, that can reach more accurate conclusions. That's the goal. It sounds sort of esoteric, but that is what I'm trying to achieve here, is a better collective consciousness.
Are you trying to move the Overton window?
So which window?
The Overton? I don't know how I'm
Overton, yeah.
English is my third language, sorry.
English is really a third language? Okay.
Yes.
You speak it quite well.
Thank you.
What are your first two?
Well, okay, so I'm curious, so for example, you once tweeted a meme by Colin Wright about how you don't feel like you moved from the left politically, that essentially the left gym. And, I think there's definitely a lot of truth to that, because the left has shifted. Can you talk about something like freedom of speech, which, as I said before, was a pretty liberal idea now. And I'm wondering, but you seem to be, one thing that you do is you tend to focus more on things that might be associated with issues that might be associated more with, say, the culture wars, what people call the cultural beliefs, and necessarily focusing as much as on things like, say, housing or prison reform or whatever, matters to you. Do you find that is there truth to that? Do you feel like you've moved a little bit as well? And are you trying to shift the conversation at all to somewhere where we can discuss some of these?
Well, I mean, there's my personal account, and then there's the company. I'm going to say what I want to say on my, personal account. And I said that before acquiring the company. I was the most interactive with the account on the Twitter platform before the acquisition. I'm going to say what I want to say. Not to do otherwise would be hypocritical. And I'm not going to inhibit my freedom of speech when I'm literally trying to improve freedom of speech. That would be absurd. However, I'm not denying a voice to those on the left. In fact, I don't know of a single, I can't make, to the best of my knowledge, there's not a single prominent left-wing account that has been silenced, including some very extreme left-wing accounts. So if there are, I'd love to know what that will end them, if I'm mistaken. Now, what we have done, though, is we've not engaged in aggressive censorship of what today is called the right. I think, not that long ago would have been called the moderate left. So towards the end there, Twitter was really very aggressively censoring anyone on the right. Obviously, a deplatformed sitting president. And so you had massive censorship of anyone on the right, with 10 times as many accounts on the right were being suspended as accounts on the left. And in fact, the only reason they would suspend an account on the left is when there was an argument between two segments of the left. And who would just silence one of the segments of the left because of an argument between two groups of the left. So like Bernie Sanders with Hillary Clinton type of thing. So then, what appears to be, well, I guess it's not really an appearance of moving to the right. The platform has moved to the right because it was so far to the left before. And in order to properly represent the whole country and the whole world, you have to be balanced. You have to allow the right and the left. And sometimes these definitions don't put exactly into a right or left. You have to allow both sides of the debate to flourish. And previously under the prior censorship regime, they did their best to suppress even moderate right-wing leads. So, and like I said, today's right-wing, honestly, was yesterday's moderate left. So like I said, so it may appear like, oh, it's moving to the right, but all we're doing is being even-handed and enabling a level playing field for all points of view that are legal.
Yeah, I think one thing is that you've been criticized, or the platform's been criticized a lot for not having, certain kinds of speech that people find very offensive. I think I don't know, I can't measure if it's high or low, but all I can say, I have personally experienced it. That said, I also think a lot of people who might make these comments, they gravitate towards a platform where they feel like they want to be, thrown off. That might be the case. So I don't know if it's like the platform's issue so much as it's like, as soon as you allow sort of free speech, a degree of free speech, people gravitate towards that, and that's just human nature.
Yeah. Well, free speech, I think, is meaningless unless people you don't like are allowed to say things you don't like. Otherwise, it loses all meaning. If people want to move to another platform, they're welcome to do so. They're not chained to the X platform. They can move anytime, or they can dual post or whatever they want to do. So if we do a bad job of creating a level playing field, or even that is perceived to not be a level playing field, obviously people will leave and they will post elsewhere. But in fact, we've seen record usage of the system, and the numbers that I pay most attention to are the user seconds as reported by iOS and Android. That's the most rigorous assessment of usage. It's easy to sort of write a lot of bots on a PC, but it's much harder to do so on iOS or and iOS, Android. We've seen roughly a 20-30% increase. It's actually roughly proportionate to the decrease in legacy media views. So I think legacy media, formerly known as mainstream media, saw, I think, a 20-30% drop in viewership last year, and we saw a corresponding increase. So we're also doing something right. And I mean, to me, the platform seems very alive. We see more and more content creators making, adding tremendous value to the system in written form and in video. And I think it's very healthy for ensuring that democracy and people's voice is heard. I think things go very well, actually. So that's my perception, at least. I could be obviously wrong, but it seems very good. And I encourage people on the left or from all parts of the political spectrum to continue to add their voice to the X platform, and rather than sort of leave in a huff, it's better to rebut arguments you disagree with on the X platform, whether right, left, or in the middle. Like I said, I think the whole right-left definition is somewhat arbitrary, but to have a healthy debate, vigorous debate, and that does mean that at times you will read things that offend you. In fact, you should have a way of saying, it's actually good that I'm reading some things that offend me, because that means freedom of speech is a lot. And that means that if I say something that offends others, I won't be shut down. That should give me great comfort.
Well, it's also sometimes it is good to be offended or offend, because it makes you think through ideas a little bit better and wonder, okay, why am I offended? Why is somebody else offended by this idea? And how do they have a point? Or are they, or are they just right?
Yeah, I'd encourage people to say, many times I'll read things on the platform and I'm quite offended, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. That's actually, it's good, because I should be offended. I'm not reading things that more than occasionally, actually, that I disagree with. And that might change my mind once in a while. I think it's important to always, be open-minded. Don't be too sort of set in your beliefs, because the odds that you're right about everything are zero. And that's why I said, if you believe that everything your political party says is true, you're a fool. And anyone who does that, there's going to be things that your political party says that are at least sometimes untrue or inaccurate. And so you want to, take things with a grain of salt, and don't think of it too much like sometimes people think of it sort of in a tribal way, where their political party is like their sports team and it can do no wrong. But really, obviously, it can. Nobody bats 1,000, to use this terminology. So you should always be prepared to accept that, I'm not saying you should change political parties, but that your political party will be wrong on some issues. You will disagree with them on some issues.
Definitely need to be able to criticize these political parties, our political parties, because that's how they would change, right? If you don't criticize, they're not going to change. And just one correction, there is one human in the universe that never gets anything wrong. That's me.
Well, yeah.
You're stunned because you agree with me. I can tell.
Well, I'm not completely unable to detect sarcasm. So, I find as, the older I get, the less I think I know. And I'd say the less certainly I know about things. And the more I realize I was wrong about this, that, and the other thing. I'd encourage people to sort of, always try to be more open-minded as you get older, not less.
Well, I know you said that you very much, you want to be able to use your free speech. But one thing, your free speech does amplify things. So, I know that if I write an article, my free speech, if I can write it clearly, has more impact than just somebody who doesn't have they have a huge speech. And, especially when it comes to something like saying, you comment on a lot of things, like say geopolitics, right? Do you feel a level of responsibility that comes with the influence that you hold? Do you just hold yourself to the exact same standard as any other human on this platform?
Well, I try to speak my mind. I try to say what I believe. That is not to say that what I believe is necessarily true. It's going to be wrong to some degree. And if I am wrong, I try to correct it if others haven't already corrected it, or community notes is not correcting it. There's no special, I don't have the ability to start the community note on my account or anyone else's. It's important that community notes, all the code is open source, all the data is open source. You can recreate whether any given note will be visible. So you can immediately tell, if I had a thumb on the scale, you would see my thumb very clearly. Sometimes people ask me to get rid of a community note, and I say, look, I literally cannot get rid of a community note on my account or anyone's account.
Well, you get a whole lot of them. So
yeah, I've gotten a bunch of community notes. I do post a lot, so there's going to be some proportionality to, it's like a batting average thing. you're going to have full community notes if you post a lot more, like you think like community notes or rebuttals or wrongness is going to be, if you post 1,000 things and get 10% of them wrong, you've got 100 wrong things. If you post only 100 things and 10% of them wrong, you only have 10 wrong things. So I have to look at it, say how many posts, what percentage of those were wrong, not how many were wrong in the absolute. So I do quite a lot. But I think generally, I think my accuracy is pretty good.
Right. Well, and they're your opinions. So, I mean, some of it, I don't think we can say this is right or wrong. I can vehemently disagree with you, which I do in a number of things. But, there's subjective things that I can't say, you're absolutely wrong and I'm absolutely right. I just believe that I'm always right. So this is another sarcasm. We need a sarcasm detector device. Like, don't you have like this company that releases like burnt hair and blow torches? That could be like a sarcasm detector could be your next gadget. How do you feel about that? I think my idea.
I think a good AI can detect sarcasm pretty well. Certainly if it's spoken. It's a little harder to detect sarcasm in written form. So the tone usually indicates sarcasm when spoken. But my mother has a saying that says, like, every time you're sarcastic, you lose a friend. So
That happens to me a lot. Well, do you think that Grok, because you've mentioned that Grok is motivated by truth-seeking, curiosity, how do you think it can help? That's the goal. So how do you think it can help a platform like X? Do you think AI can help users be more accurate in what they say? Maybe by suggesting, hey, this thing didn't happen in the year it happened in 1977 or something like that when it's a factual correction. Do you see it being used that way?
yeah, absolutely. So with the release of Grok 1.5, which hopefully is only a few weeks away, we'll have the sort of the ability to do for Grok to do analysis. Like there'll be a button that says Grok analysis, kind of like Wellski analysis, like the penguin. And then Grok can tell you whether the sort of look at the whole thread of, look at an entire sort of thread of replies and sum up what, its best guess at what the truth is. And if there are any errors, as well as to help people in creating posts. So as you're writing a post, if you want a bit of help from Grok, then there should be a button there that helps you craft or check or enhance a post. I think that'd be pretty useful. And then when you do see an opinion voiced, to be able to easily say, well, tell me what the rebuttal to this would be, and say, so that I think would be quite useful. And yeah, we just sort of iterate towards something that is as helpful as possible, improving accuracy, getting to the sort of as close to the whole truth, the whole truth, and ideally nothing but the truth. And nothing but the truth part is hard, but we can at least reduce the percentage that is unfull.
I have a competing product. I don't know if you're aware. It's called ChatGPT. Hello, Elon. I am ChatGPT, and I Doxxing. So it's the sarcastic model of AI. That's what it is. But in terms of obviously AI can be used for good, for evil. And I think we're already seeing a lot more deep fakes. I think a lot of video generated content, images, and a lot of that is being used to influence us. And there's already been so many influence campaigns from different countries. There's been a lot of research on that. And today there's things that we can look at. We can look at AI, maybe the hands that there's, 6 fingers. I think that's a very rare genetic disorder. So we can rule that out as being a real human. I think there's a lot of ways that little tail signs, right? But I think that's going to be more and more increasingly difficult. So how do you see us navigating this? And are we going to be a society with zero trust because we can't even trust, a picture or video?
I think very quickly on the X system, if something is AI generated or true, you will see in the replies, if not in community notes, that it is AI generated or not. I have yet to be really fooled by any significance. I think the only one that I think fooled me was which I think in retrospect was a bit silly, the Pope in the puffer jacket, which, he's not really going to be wearing a puffer jacket in the middle of summer in Italy. It's a bit warm, but it did look good. I don't know. I haven't really seen, can you think of some examples of AI generated stuff that wasn't immediately corrected?
No, it wasn't immediately corrected. I think certain things spread for a long time until they were corrected. Some things were corrected, but I think as it gets better, I think it's going to be more difficult because social media platforms don't really have a way of, say, detecting that this is an AI generated, video or image. And so that's something that leaves a lot of room for, again, falsities. And like, for me, I want people to make their decisions based on as much accurate information as they can, even if it's not the same decision that I'm making. And this stands in the way, I think.
Well, that's why I always usually ask for examples of things rather than have, one can sort of voice fake views of what might happen in the future. But, this one can think of a lot of examples in the present. It remains simply a fear of what might happen in the future. And if there are concrete examples in the present, then perhaps there's something we can do about it. I'm just saying that I rarely see some sort of AI generated thing where there's not an immediate correction in the comments or a community note.
Yeah, well, I think this is something that a lot of people in that field are trying to figure out. It's not an easy problem to solve beyond fake media notes, but because it's going to be hard to do. But one thing you said previously, you said, you really want to make X the everything app. And, I can see that as being potentially also a way to be less reliant on one revenue stream. So advertising revenue stream, which I think supports your dedication to freedom of speech. But is there a particular reason beyond that, if that's even the part of the reason? Is there a reason that you want X to be for everything and not just for speech?
So to be including video, I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Well, because I know one thing, you want people to be able to make, say, financial transactions on the app. Then you've got Grok, who's AI. So you've got a lot of different elements, not just say video and spaces and text. You want it to do a lot more than that. So I'm wondering what the reason for that is.
I just think it would be useful. So if it's not useful, people won't use it. But if it is useful, they will. So I'm trying to make the most useful platform on the internet. Yeah. So I think sort of all-in-one app is pretty useful. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, people won't use it.
So that's your motivation, is like the usefulness of things. Interesting.
It's generally the furtherance of civilization, in pursuit of a more enlightened future.
Do you see, I think a lot of people have lost trust in institutions. And I think not just, media, but many institutions. Do you see a path forward where people can regain that trust? What do you think can be done to do that?
I think people shouldn't trust institutions, or they should trust institutions proportionate to the accuracy of what those institutions have said in the past. So if they are, if an institution has a track record of being wrong or deceptive, then the reputation will, that reputation is that's the reputation they're going to have over time. And so if any given institution wants to improve the public trust, they need to be more accurate and truthful. And then over time, their reputation will improve. Now, it is true that there's an asymmetry there, and that you can destroy reputation a lot. It's far easier to destroy a reputation for truthfulness than it is to create one. And so if you saw it, just like for products, if the company makes products and product quality suffers, even briefly, it takes a long time before consumers believe you again about your product quality. Like the American auto industry had that problem where the quality of cars was just far inferior to Japanese cars in the 80s and 90s. And it took really a few decades before that perception of American cars having worse quality was stressed. And it might probably not even today, it's probably not full of rest. Like Will said, it can take a lifetime to build a reputation and 5 minutes to destroy it. I think that's maybe an extreme. That's probably an extreme point of view, but it's certainly far easier to damage a reputation for truth than to create one.
No, absolutely. And the problem also with institutions is that to function properly as a society, we do need a level of trust, or it just kind of falls apart. So it becomes, it's a difficult thing to solve. When you lose that trust, regaining it is just incredibly difficult. Also, in terms of trust or reputation, as you said, because I've been researching this for my book, one thing that is really incredibly important, that because we all have this digital footprint nowadays, right? Whereas if your reputation was destroyed in the past, you can move to a new town, change your name, or move to a new town and maybe start over. If there were newspaper articles about you, they would sort of vanish in a couple of weeks, and that's it. And now, because everything is digital, anything that's ever said about you is now forever and follows you everywhere. It makes it really difficult for people, particularly when they're targeted for those things, or even genuine misdeeds that maybe they shouldn't have a lifetime of suffering for.
I don't know what to do about that. It's true that, what you see on the internet lives forever. So maybe people just need to be a little more forgiving. If somebody made a wrong tweet, whatever, post 10 years ago, maybe we should just all learn to be a little more forgiving of such things. When some people shouldn't be canceled for, and in fact, a while there, people who comedians were being canceled for, tweets they did 13 years ago, which is absurd. Everyone has moments or where they, post something, perhaps they're in just a really bad state of mind. I don't know. I think we should have some forgiveness, especially if people apologize for what they were, then we should have some forgiveness there.
I mean, I'll say apologize if you genuinely done something wrong, David done something wrong, you never apologize. Yeah, yeah.
I don't think you should apologize if it's something you still, it would be obviously disingenuous to apologize for something that you aren't actually sorry about. But, it's just something like, you should be dishonest in your apology. So, I mean, we're all just human here and humans make mistakes, to err is human. If, sometimes we say things in a hurry, like I said, a bad state of mind or without, necessarily knowing all the facts. But then if you subsequently correct yourself, I think we should accept that.
Yeah, I think people often say, listen, it's accountability culture. And I think the difference there is, I think people should be accountable for their words and their actions. I certainly don't think they should be, unaccountable for everything. However, if you spread and said something from people and they said something a little off, we would have a little bit of grace. And so people get sort of stuck with the repercussions of a mistake for whatever, quite disproportionately oftentimes. So I think that is a big issue. I think as a society, let's be cautious. In prison systems, right? Prison systems body, but also we should have some, and we also could be, or the sentence should be fine. And so I think if we look at society in the same implementing social, I think it's very similar. I think we could probably have a similar approach to that.
Okay, sure.
All right. We can disagree. All right. Well, I'm wondering, this is probably a very new area of expertise, but I know that people worry about that a lot. I'm worried about gene editing. And I'm wondering, is this something that is involved? Obviously, when we did it, the whole thing about what we would have to do, blue eye, color, and all that.
I'm sorry, the connection is unfortunately a little, I think it's maybe in a bad spot.
Maybe it's me. Can you hear me better now or no? It's okay. I was just asking about gene editing and your thoughts on that as far as, editing designer babies as opposed to just dealing with health consequences. Like, does that change our humanity?
It takes a long time to grow humans, 20 years. I wouldn't worry too much about gene modification. It's like somebody making super soldiers. It'll take far too long. AI is moving at, artificial intelligence is moving so much faster than humans can possibly grow up. So I think that's really the thing to be concerned about, not whether we're doing gene editing to make people a bit smarter or to make theoretical super soldiers.
Right. I have one last question for you. I don't know, and I know I've taken a lot of time, so I don't want to keep you. I don't know if you have any time to take a couple of audience questions. Okay, great. I'll ask you one question and then we'll go to a few audience members. So my question is, if you could solve one problem, what would it be?
I guess I'd try to enhance human intelligence dramatically. Just wave magic wand, just make everyone like 10 times smarter. I would do that.
I quite like this one, actually. I actually, weirdly enough, that answer. Sarah, do you have a question?
Sarah makes
fun of you all the time, so.
I am, and she's a good person for bringing me up. Catherine asked you earlier about you wanting to make X the everything app. Where do you see X in a year? Do you see it largely the same, or will it be a completely different user experience in a year?
I think it's going to be completely different. I think you'll certainly see a lot more features and functionality. I think we'll have audio, video calling, group audio, video calling, screen sharing, all things that one is tempted to sort of expect from, say, a Signal or WhatsApp or whatever. I think there'll be ideally a wide range of financial services and payments and beyond. You'll see a lot more long-form content or video. The ability to search within the X system will be dramatically better. The recommendations, the sort of for you recommendations, right, recently moved to AI-based recommendations that just give you content that's far more compelling than the heuristics or rules of thumb-based content recommendations. So what we've been doing over the past year or so is increasing the amount of AI that is involved in the recommended for you posts, which I think people have generally responded well to. I think most people found that the recommendations are quite compelling, and I think they'll get more and more compelling.
May I ask one more quick thing? Oh, I'm sorry. I cut you off.
Yeah, and to make you disagree with anything I'm going, have you found the recommendations in the For You to be more compelling than, say, a year ago?
I would say that the For You still needs some work. Some of the things that I'm recommended, I wouldn't say they would be wasted user minutes, as you say at times. But I think it has gotten better. What I really liked, and Catherine and I used it the other day, we used the X calling feature. And our sound
Okay.
quality was great. The video worked great. It worked better for me than WhatsApp or Signal. Do you see wanting people to use that option more? You talked about not using your cell phone in the future and only taking calls on X. Will you
Right.
truly do that?
I'll try. Yeah, I will try. I mean, the best way to improve a product is to use it. And if it's, I think there's still a lot of functionality we need to improve about our audio video calling. And so I think so I'm not going to abandon my phone number quite yet, but I'm, hopefully I think I'll be able to just write my number around the middle of this year. And yes, and I've been using the X audio video calling more and more over the past few weeks. And definitely things need to improve, but it works pretty well as you've experienced.
Thank you. Aaron.
Hi, thanks, Elon, for doing the space with Catherine. Thank you also for what you've done for free speech on this platform. I'm one of the private plaintiffs in the Missouri v. Biden censorship lawsuit that's currently before the Supreme Court. We'll have oral arguments on March 18th. My co-plaintiff, Jay Bhattacharya, I think, is one of the scientists that you know. So I appreciate you opening things up with the Twitter files to those journalists. And the platform certainly has improved since you've taken over. I have noticed, however, since you stepped down as CEO, and I understand why, you've got a lot of companies to run, that Twitter 2.0 has maybe reverted to Twitter 1.8, 1.7,
Okay.
closer to what it was before you purchased it. And I also, my own reading of this is some of it's personnel, but some of it is also just machine learning that has been outsourced to third parties, and the sort of accumulated code that, you can't exactly wipe the slate clean and start over with a blank slate, given just sort of the nature of this platform and the accumulated history of the platform. I guess my question for you is, what can be done about the continued suppression of speech on this platform that is less a function maybe of the current personnel and more a function of old code that has been encrusted into the system? Do you have a game plan to sort of clean that up in such a way that the playing field truly becomes level and we're no longer seeing things like a follower cap based on content that is constitutionally protected speech? I'm not talking about, and I will not defend, speech that is not constitutionally protected, but constitutionally protected speech, where it's really just viewpoint discrimination. I think Twitter has come a long way under your leadership. I would like to see it go sort of all the way under your leadership, but I understand it's a pretty gargantuan task. And so I'd just like to get your sense of the lay of the land and what more can still be done to make this sort of the best free speech platform. Well, it is the best free speech platform out there, but a better free speech platform.
Which might not be a high bar, actually.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, my short to the team, and I will be sort of digging into this more, is that I do still run product development, which includes the recommendation engine. And I'm not sort of not picking on individual accounts to promote at all, but rather just trying to improve the quality of recommendations that people find it, to improve the signal to noise. So you're getting content that you find to be interesting, informative, funny, and as opposed to, boring or wrong. So any information you can give me that would help me in that task will be appreciated. Is there anything, but you just have to be specific, anything like if you're in my position, what would you do?
Yeah. Well, just from my own personal experience, once you get a feel for this app, and if you're posting a lot, you can sort of get a sense of what the algorithm is up to vis-a-vis your account. And, I experienced a really hard and fast follower cap under Twitter 1.0. That really got lifted, and there was a totally different feel on the platform within, I would say, a month or two of you taking over, and a lot of the firings that happened and a lot of the cleaning house. Once again, I feel myself under a follower cap, and I'm tweeting mostly about censorship and free speech, and I'm focusing my research and my writing mostly on censorship and free speech. And, I wonder what is still at work on this platform such that people like Jay or me or my other co-plaintiffs in the case credible doctors and scientists who have, credible opinions and, are exercising considerable influence now with this case that many believe is the most important free speech case of our generation, because it's related to this new media, social media that you and Catherine have been talking about. And, I can't say for sure why that is happening, but something in the algorithm is putting its thumb on the scales continuously when you talk about certain controversial issues. And that may be old stuff deeply embedded within, the functioning of the algorithm. It may be stuff that's been added since you came on. I'm not a coder. I'm not a computer scientist, although my father was. So I can't tell you exactly what's going on because I don't have access to the code. And even if I did, I don't know that I would be able to interpret it. But I can tell you, as a frequent user of this platform and as someone who's involved and, in the crosshairs, so to speak, because I'm a plaintiff in a major free speech case, and I'm probably among the plaintiffs, the one who's written and published most about Missouri v. Biden, that something's restarted again after you took over. I don't know why. I don't know if it's human or machine learning based, but I'm really keen to get at the bottom of it. And, happy to talk to you offline if that would be helpful to try to give you a sense of my own experience on the platform.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at your account right now. Okay, so one of the changes we're making that should go live soon is in the recommended for you. We weren't, and this, I think a lot of people may have noticed this. Often there would be from accounts that you follow but don't interact with. You would see almost no content accounts that you follow, but don't interact with.
Right.
That's because we overweighted interaction.
Right.
Interpreting interaction as, well, you like liking or replying to an account, and so we're going to show you a whole bunch more stuff that you interact with.
Right.
And but there are a lot of accounts that people follow that they don't interact with. They follow that account for just to learn things. In fact, for a lot of publications, they will follow, say, a magazine or a news organization, not with the interest, not with the idea of commenting or liking or anything, but just because they wish to see output from that news organization or from that person.
Right.
And so we're adjusting the algorithm actually to include more of things that you follow but don't interact with. That should help. And that actually is probably some content where people are perhaps afraid to comment on it because this may be problematic for spicy content where somebody doesn't want to say anything because they're afraid that they may be judged for saying something or liking a particular thing.
Right.
So I think that should help. So I think just if we're not seeing improvement in the next week or two, just let me know, because this should go live, I think, probably next week, but certainly not more than 2 weeks from now. And that should help a lot of accounts that will say interesting things, but where people come up and interact.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful to know. I'll keep an eye on things.
I think we'll go to your voice doppelganger next, that apparently Alex Jones thinks is you, to prove.
Alex Jones thinks it's me?
Yeah, this is part 2. You've met me at least 3 times. You're about to die of laughter, aren't you?
Yeah, it's me again. Yeah.
This is part 3. I swear, honestly, there's nothing better than to hear you laugh this much. Like, I can only imagine the kind of stress you're under.
So funny.
Yeah. Dude, for the past couple of weeks, I basically, oh God, I can't do this.
It's too much. It's
Oh my God.
There's a billion people on Earth. So
Yeah.
odds are
Yes.
there's someone who sounds like you somewhere.
Yes.
And you're that person.
Yes. It gets worse. It gets worse. It gets so much worse. It gets so much worse.
Honestly, I don't believe you're not me.
Yeah, that's a theory. People think I'm legitimately your clone. There's been theories that I'm one of your Neuralink experiments. Can you clarify that I'm not one of your Neuralink experiments? Or maybe I am and I wouldn't realize it? Because that shit's vast. How are your monkeys? I was a test subject.
Well, the weird thing is you even ask questions in the way that I would ask questions.
Autism.
And, my similar sense of humor is eerie.
Yeah. I still remember the first time. Oh God. I still remember the first time. When the first time I found out about you was actually in early 2016. This is when I watched SpaceX rocket engine experimentations on YouTube. I was like, man, this is the coolest shit I've ever seen. It's going to be that cool big. And a significant other actually showed me a video clip of you and said, hey, Brad, this guy sounds like an older version of you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Here, this guy, look at him. He's talking about hydrogen. What do you mean he's talking about hydrogen? I listened to this. I was like, so this is the first time I realized something's not quite right with this world. Probably is like a bug in the simulation. And even if there is one, I'm pretty sure I cause a lot of disruption. Recently, as I'm sure you're aware, there's a mass meltdown. There's like an account that's doing rage farming. So like, it's so good. Like these people, what they've done is they're trying to pin on you that you've suspended an account because it did targeted harassment. Well, it was not suspended. They actually deactivated their account. Now I tried to do rage farming. Now they're going to spread it on the news everywhere. Be like, dude, I'm complimenting yourself. It's like the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I was gonna let it happen, but then I said, you know what? I don't want thermonuclear warfare just yet for media. Like this, I'm not gonna have that. Ever since yesterday, even I do Diablo live streams, everything. It's all over the place. It's inescapable now. It's so weird. It's terrible. I like it uniquely case.
I mean, all the pictures of you, like, what do you look like?
I've seen
Thinner version
Adrian.
of you.
I've seen Adrian. He could be your twin.
Dude, this
I mean, I could.
Serious?
What are you saying?
I could DM you. Dude, I could DM you. If you enable access, I'll tell you everything you need to. 5 minutes, I'll tell you everything. If you're interested. If you're interested.
Video with you guys revealing each other. That would be pretty fun.
Oh, God. Yes.
We should also get that guy from China.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this guy. It would be the weirdest thing ever. That's the holy trifecta. You know the Holy Trinity? There you go. You found it.
Video look. You have to. The three of you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Wait, is that guy real? Because
That guy? I'm not sure. I mean, he has had some facial modifications. He looks real, I would say. I mean, the fakes maybe because the resolution is kind of shit. I don't know. I don't know. There are various many, say Elvis impersonators out there, right? And they would modify their facial structure to look like him. So I think maybe we're seeing a similar case. I mean, they're really advanced down there in China, especially in the medical field. So like, maybe, I don't know. It would be a really good troll. Good for propaganda too. I would do it.
Oh boy, you guys.
yeah, that would really trip people out.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect too.
But I mean, it's 1.4 billion people in China. If you take the person in China that looks the most like me, it probably looks pretty close.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I have to say, just like, but to get this out of the gate, I really enjoy this platform. I honestly don't understand why a lot of people complain about it. I feel like it's about how you use it and what you use it for. Like, I use basically every feature on the platform, except, of course, community notes and, some of the newer features like articles and such. I don't have access to that. And I do spaces practically 8 hours a day, 3 times a week. I do, all the time. It's nice. I like to use it for information gathering and dissemination. It's like, imagine your brain like a machine learning algorithm. You just need a lot of data, and then you need to curate out of the noise the value, right? You find the diamonds in the rough. That's essentially what I do. And I do this quite a lot. That's amazing. We find cool stuff out. We cover a lot of it then. We covered your earnings call. Your mother was in there. And that was so weird.
Wait, you talked to what did my mom think?
I have no idea. She was just listening in there, just sitting, and we were having a discussion on the earnings call. Just sitting in there. She didn't hear me much because I didn't want to interrupt in the conversation. And also I was scared shitless.
No, it's really going to trip out my mom to hear you talk.
Oh yeah. Sure. Why not? How's your kid doing? I hear he's a little active in the background there. You doing fine?
I'll just text my mom. She's away.
This would be the greatest space ever if you brought your mother in.
I mean, I'd have to bring.
Well, I just texted her.
Oh shit, he said hi.
There's a lot of requests.
Yeah, hello there.
Bring your mother up.
I'd say hello world because I'm a simulation.
I'm not sure if I know that.
Hey, Adrian Dittman, Catherine's trying to speak, but you are the loudest person on stage, my friend.
It's by design. I have a terrible microphone. It's cool.
I don't know, but
It's a burn
Adrian,
conductor.
Elon Jr. over there, be quiet for Catherine.
Jesus.
Thank you, Sarah. This is why Sarah's, loyal. She makes fun of me, she bullies me, but she has my back, which I.
But Elon just said that's my free speech and I can bully you if I want as long as it's legal.
Wait, did you say that?
Yeah. I specifically say bully, but I guess technically that does fall into the rubric of free speech.
See?
Space for me. Well, I know Nora has a question, so let's go to Nora, and then hopefully your mom can join and hear your doppelganger, your young doppelganger.
Is it tripping everyone else out
Yeah,
too?
this is really funny.
Literally everyone else on the platform out. It's so weird.
Gonna get all serious again. Well, I actually wanted to ask about the Starship launch because I just read an article that came out saying that they're looking at Cape Canaveral as a potential location for the Starship launch. And I know since they have to do an environmental impact assessment and blah, 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 and public comment because it's the government for you, that happens in March. But do you have any idea or like any plans, do you think, or estimation of when a potential launch date would be? And are you excited? Like, do you have like hopes for the mission? And do you feel like we're a lot closer to getting to Mars?
Yeah, I think I don't want to jinx it, which I've picked here, but I think the probability of reaching orbit is good, only 80%, 70, 80% with this third flight. Certainly the third flight is a much better rocket than flights 1 or 2, but like, there's always, you can't have too much luck in a rocket launch. But we're getting ready to do flight 3 probably in about, I think probably, I guess the second week of March. Like normally it's like March 8th. We're trying to get it to be sooner than March 8th. But so my guess is it happens sometimes in some point in the first half of next month. And then flight 4 is ready shortly thereafter. So
And
like, should have flight
that the
4
location of
ready.
the like, how does that affect the probability of success? Like in your opinion, or what is it about, having different location that may, help with the outcome?
Well, there's 2 things. There's flight 3, which is hundreds of improvements from flight 2. That just increases the probability of success of flight 3. But we will establish a second launch site at Cape Canaveral. It's not to the exclusion of Starbase in South Texas, but it's in addition to. So we're going to be launching a lot, ideally, from both Cape Canaveral and from South Texas. And we may at some point look at having we probably will at some point look at having a third launch.
Let's go to you.
Has your mom responded to the text? Now that can we get back to not being serious?
Yeah, I sent you.
Not yet.
I sent you an image of myself so you know what I look like. Obviously, don't share that around. I don't quite want that heat yet. There's a lot of things that would happen.
Okay, well, we don't look exactly the same.
Yeah.
You look different from me. So
Yes.
there you go.
Different. It's kind of like almost an opposite thing. This is a relatively older photo. I take a photo of myself now, but I look kind of fucked up. I just came out of, so I do actually do similar things. I manufacture a type of product and, I did some stuff. So I look real fucked up. I got like all kinds of machine stuff over me, oils and shit. So definitely not a pretty sight. Yeah, it's fuck.
So I have an ex-employee here.
That's one confirmation.
I have an ex-employee here by the name of, he's an influencer on the app. He goes by Kettlebell Dan. You might be familiar with him.
Okay.
I think he has a question.
Hey, Catherine. Yeah, thanks. Great job hosting this one and good luck on your book. Hey, Elon, first of all, I love these conversations. I wish more politicians and notable figures would use spaces in this way. It feels like a very casual conversation, even though there's, tens of thousands of people in the room listening. My question for you, you recommended the Culture series that people read that by Ian Banks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I started in on it. And I'm curious, like, you talk a lot about expanding the scope of humanity, to the reaches of the universe. And, in his book, he really paints a picture of, there's trillions of people across the galaxy. And I think that's maybe a driver for a lot of the technology that he describes in the book. I'm curious if that's influenced the way you think about expanding the scope of reality, and also how you would tie that into having children. I have 5 kids. I know I'm behind you, but you talk a lot about encouraging people to have kids. We can't populate the universe if we stop populating. So I'm curious.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I started SpaceX long before reading any of the Banks novels. So, but I've always been interested in sci-fi, and like the Foundation series by Asimov, Heinlein, really all the great sci-fi authors. I've read even pretty obscure sci-fi. And I think Banks is some of the best. I think he might be the best actually ever in sci-fi, in my opinion. In fact, some of the stuff he writes is so good that I sort of wonder, is he like some in the simulation? But then unfortunately he had died before I was able to try to reach out, because the sophistication of the sci-fi he writes is superhuman. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think that we want to be a civilization that expands to the rest of the solar system and ultimately to the rest of the galaxy. I think we should expand that's the sort of the foundation of my philosophy, is expansion of the scope and scale of consciousness, such that we are better able to understand the nature of reality, understand the universe. That's what motivates me.
You speak a lot about the simulation, as do I. My fascination with it, like, why do you always say that this person may be another AI in the simulation? You even said this yourself when Grok, spat out a hallucination about what I do, and it said that I'm your twin of some kind. You said, what if we're just 2 AIs in the simulation? What do you mean with that? There must be deeper meaning. What does this mean to you?
Well, simulation theory is a deep rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
The best argument for we're in a simulation, I would say we are in a simulation, but one just think of things in terms of probabilities. I think the thing that is most persuasive in considering the probability that we are in a simulation is the advancement of video games. Video games went from being something like Pong, which is like just two rectangles on a square, very primitive graphics. Not that long ago, only like 50 years ago, 55, 60 years ago, thereabouts. Yeah, in our lifetime, I saw video games go from very primitive squares, rectangles to photorealistic video games that have millions of people playing simultaneously. And that's in, for when I was like 5 years old to today. So then where will video games be in the future? They will be indistinguishable from reality. In fact, you'll be able to render video games at a resolution better than your eyes can comprehend. And if you extrapolate neural interfaces as well, then eventually you'll be able to have simulated an entire reality, all senses, touch, smell, everything. All your memories are electrical signals. When you smell something, even though it's maybe visceral, it is actually electrical signals going to your brain, just digital neuron pulses. So then what are the odds that what are the odds that we're in base reality instead of somebody's video game, given that there will be in the future? But if civilization continues to advance, there will be billions, perhaps more than billions, maybe trillions video game instances. Maybe it's video games all the way down, like turtles. So eventually you have a 1-bit simulation.
Like voxels almost, right?
Well, it takes a more complex thing to simulate another thing. So I think you sort of have a boundary or limitation that you can always simulate something with something that's more complex. So therefore, simulations will get less complex if you have a series of nested simulations. So eventually, the simulation is just 1 bit.
That's good.
On roll.
And so what do you think? What do you think its purpose is?
Well, its purpose could be, we say like, why do people play video games? I guess they play video games for fun. Why do people watch movies or TV series? Just, they wish to be entertained. Why do you run simulations? You run simulations to see what would happen. Not because you know what will happen, but you're uncertain. Like in our reality, we run simulations all the time. SpaceX will run many simulations, millions of simulations of rocket flights and adjust the parameters. So doing a one-to-one simulation where you're given a wide range of input parameters and environmental circumstances, and you run millions of simulations to see which of those simulations will succeed, which will fail. So we run simulations not because we know what will happen, because we don't know what will happen. So I think as long as the simulation is interesting, if we are in a simulation, as long as the simulation is interesting to the creators of the simulation, it will continue. So I think what that implies is just don't be boring.
Let's have.
Hey, Kat, your mic's pretty quiet.
Yeah, I'm having issues with this, but let's just go to you and then.
It's all good. We can hear you. Elon, I have 2 questions for you. One, not so serious. I asked this question to Linda actually in a space 3 months ago, and I thought she nailed it. So my first question is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. If you ask someone for a sandwich and they handed you a hot dog, you'd be like, wait a second, they just gave me a hot dog. They probably would say it's not a sandwich because it would not meet expectations of ordering a sandwich.
Now they've solved
That's exactly what. Well, that's what Linda said too. So, I mean, anyone who thinks a hot dog is a sandwich, you're tripping.
Yeah. It's like that thing from that Silicon Valley show, which says like hot dog or not hot dog. So that shows. It's quite funny. Mike Judge.
Another question, do you have any updates on the Neuralink patient?
Yeah, I don't want to use this to sort of break major news on that.
Yeah, no worries.
Progress is good. But, progress is good. Patient seems to have made a full recovery with neural effects that we're aware of, and is able to control the mouse, move the mouse around the screen just by thinking. So we're trying to get as many button presses as possible from thinking. So that's what we're currently working on is, can you get left mouse, right mouse, like mouse down, mouse up, left mouse, sort of left button down, left button, which is like kind of needed, like you want to like click and drag something, you need the sort of mouse down and to hold on mouse down. And then there's, we want to have like more than just 2 buttons. So we try to make progress on that front, but overall it's looking very good.
Let's go to a question from Nisha.
Hey, Elon. Nice to be speaking with you. I actually have a question kind of going back to AI images and AI video. I've seen on like other social apps, them integrating more tools for creators will kind of supplement what they're doing using AI. And I know that X is kind of rolling out a lot of features that are helpful to content creators like articles, which I'm very excited about. I'm wondering if you and X overall have thought about kind of developing features within X, maybe via Grok for generative AI image and video creation, or possibly partnering, I imagine not with OpenAI, but maybe something like Midjourney to make it easier for kind of artists and creators that leverage AI to kind of enhance their content on X.
We are in some interesting discussions with Midjourney, and something may come of that. But either way, one way or another, we will enable AI art generation on the X platform.
Awesome. Thank you.
I mean, I think it would be really great for memes, if you could just sort of like whip up an original meme.
Well, that's what I do. I'm one of your reply guys, Elon, and I put plenty of turtle memes in your replies. Few you end up liking.
All right, sounds good.
Do you have a favorite meme, Elon? Is that it?
It's not to pick a favorite. Actually, I think I cannot pick a favorite without incriminating myself.
Okay, fair enough. I'll let that one slide. I think Lev has a...
Or plead the fifth or whatever.
All right, let's go to Lev and then Sarah, and then we'll see where we're at.
I like all the Elon memes. You don't like all the Elon memes, Elon?
Well, I don't like them all. I guess some of them are pretty funny. I am become meme, to paraphrase the guy that, lived the man.
What does it feel like to be a meme?
Surreal, I suppose.
Catherine will know tomorrow when I am this entire space. Don't you worry, girl.
I am very worried. Very worried.
A meme. It's a meme.
All right, Lev, do you have a question?
Yeah, fascinating conversation tonight, folks. A couple questions, Elon. Funny enough, I actually served as a staffer in the front office of the Global Engagement Center from May 2021 to May 2022. I thought the timing was important. I actually left because I was, one of the main reasons why I had left the GEC was because of all that was happening with X. So if I can connect, But a couple unrelated questions to that, not on this space. What do you think about the idea of profiles having to disclose whether they're being paid to post content on behalf of a particular candidate or political campaign? So, there's like a ton of X accounts that may or may not have been paid by the DeSantis campaign or the Trump campaign or the Ramaswamy campaign. Do you think it would be a good idea for those influencers having to disclose that they're being paid, so people know motive?
Well, isn't that a legal requirement?
I'm talking about like on X.
Right.
Is that a legal requirement?
I think if you're going to, promote a political campaign that would count as a political donation, I'm not sure of the nature of the law here. It's obviously very difficult for us to know whether or not someone is.
Right. Yeah. The implementation of that would obviously be difficult, but I just kind of wanted to bring that up because I think it would definitely do well for transparency on the platform if there is some way to verify whether a post, isn't meant to inform with great motive and for free speech, or whether a post is meant to deceive and is basically an advertisement for a certain political candidate. I think that would be great. And I did want to connect about the GEC. Could you point me in the right direction as to how I can connect with some folks about my experience there off the space?
Absolutely. Why don't you reply to this conversation and to Cat's account? And because I'd be curious, because what I saw from the Twitter files was the Global Engagement Center, which most people have never heard of, was arguably the number one in terms of, certainly from a quantity standpoint, in terms of how many accounts they wanted suspended or de-amplified. I think might have been number one out of all organizations. So that's definitely concerning. And I was at a friend's birthday party of some people who are extremely well-read and some of the smartest people in the world, and they'd never heard of Global Engagement Center. I was like, yeah, it's in the State Department, and, I think it's not good. We should just generally, I think it was created in the intent of stopping Russian disinformation, but I think it's went far beyond that mandate, is what I can see.
Great. Let's go to Sphinx. And I don't know, Elon, do you have much time left, or do we want to start wrapping this up?
Yeah, I think maybe 5 to 10 minutes or something like that.
So let's go to Sphinx.
Thank you, Kat. What's up, Elon? How's it hanging?
Good.
Good. Elon, I wanted, that wasn't my question, but yeah. What I'm concerned about or interested about what you think might be some ideas that X could do to continue to combat this doxing and harassment that goes on online. And I just want to explain one example of harassment, which is people, for instance, writing very derogatory things like the N-word, but putting spaces in between them, right? So that sort of thing is getting through the system. And then also it seems like people are openly doxing others and they just don't get, nothing happens. So what is there as a user we can do, and what can the platform do? And I know that you guys are hiring more people in trust and safety, so I appreciate that. But those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, doxing is definitely against our rules because it inhibits freedom of speech. Accounts will be suspended for doxing, and that includes revealing the real name behind an account, not just their physical address. I guess that doxing is not strictly speaking illegal, but it does impinge upon freedom of speech. If because a lot of people, if they say something, they may get fired or ostracized. And I think there is value to having a nom de plume, and I think that actually, on balance, does more to improve freedom of speech than harm it. You will have the downside, of course, that people can then anonymously, so that I think that's right. We're for freedom of speech. For moderation, as I said, we are trying to hew as close to the law as possible. We're on the side of free speech. So if there's a question of like, should the speech, if it's borderline, should the speech be allowed or not allowed? We're on the side of allowing it. I think that's the right move. And like I said earlier, although it's somewhat may sound esoteric to a lot of people, what I try to do at a high level is bring the signal of noise of the collective consciousness, and the bandwidth and the signal of noise, like more signal, less noise, to create a more effective, a better group mind. We are already a collective consciousness. It's just that I think there's merit to improving the quality of that group mind.
Thank you. I just really quick follow-up I wanted to ask. Is there anything with the user that we can do when someone is doxxed? And by doxxed, I mean name, address, court documents, that kind of thing, really doxxed. Is there anything the user can do to help the platform, to work with the platform? I'm very familiar with the terms of service of this platform, and I'm just wondering what we can do instead of just asking, X to solve this problem.
Well, we do take doxing very seriously. So if you see doxing, if it's not being reported and try to at me or something, I'll do my best to take action. Like I said, my operating principle is enhancing freedom of speech, improving signal noise of the communications between worlds. And so I'm going to try to do things that serve that greater purpose.
Yeah, thank you. I think that doxing is definitely a problem on the platform, and I imagine elsewhere as well, that people are really concerned about. Obviously, some people are anonymous for a reason, and while I choose to use my name, I think people have all sorts of reasons why they might not use theirs. So I think it's definitely something worth addressing.
Yeah. And I by the way, I only really post under Elon Musk. People are wondering, do I have some alt account? I do have, Baby Smoke, and which no one ever guesses me. But Baby Smoke doesn't really post much. And Cyber Gamer, where I'll post like video game stuff. That's it really. So, and I am definitely not Adrian, even though we sound bizarrely alike.
We'll let Mr. Jones know.
I actually like your gaming live streams. I'm glad that you were actually the thing got me into Diablo. Like I was thinking, why would you be playing this game? Actually, I find this really interesting because you said it's a major stress reliever. And I looked into it and I was like, how could this relieve stress? And I played it myself, and I do play it, like I say, almost every single night. I play with a few friends, and I do stream it. I think everyone should do streaming. It's just even if it's just to play around and monkey around, it's nice. I think streaming is really good for this platform. And you got the Diablo community always posted in there, and I'm glad that you added the feature that I can not only post it to the community, but I can have that same post also be shared to my followers on main page. That's very helpful. That's super, super helpful. So I exclusively post in there whenever it's Diablo stuff. Yeah. Also, the stability of streams is greatly improved. I really like it. The resolution is excellent. I really like it. It's really good. Yeah. Also, if you want to play sometime, I kill things with electricity. I like the sorceress. This one's super fun.
The best of...
Yeah, I think this is actually OP right now, or if you want to speedrun dungeons. It's like
100%. 100%.
It's like absurd. So I think
it drops these balls of lightning, and it destroys your PC's frame rate. It's beautiful. I like to break the game at that level, like really see really push the graphics to what it can do. And that's definitely something that does it for me. And besides, it's kind of ironic because I have infrastructure that's run off of solar. So if you really think about it, I mean, it's a fully carbon negative character in a video game because it's powered off of solar on a computer, killing things with electricity, removing carbon. That's my enemies. I don't know. That just trips me out. But I like it.
Well, isn't that like lights in video games are powered by electricity?
Yeah.
So they're probably they're powered by real electricity, even though they light vehicles.
Exactly. Yeah. It's pure as far.
Your mic's really low there, Catherine.
Okay.
Right there. You're good now.
Okay. So I think your mom is in this space.
Can we bring her up?
Can you see her? I'm looking. Oh,
She's May Musk, right? I see her down there.
yeah, I see her. I just sent her an invite.
Hey, Elon, may I ask you? I've gotten several DMs from people wanting to ask questions that can't come up. One of them is a gentleman, Roz Alert, would like to know about the thousands of creators, including himself, that have encountered the issue of ad demonetization, seemingly without notification as to why. Do you know anything about that? And I paraphrased.
We know about it. Yeah, generally, if an account is posting things that advertisers don't like, we obviously cannot force advertisers to advertise under those accounts. So it's, there's freedom of speech, but we can't force advertisers to post things. Sometimes people have this strange idea that there's some magical source of money, but there isn't. If somebody's posting content that advertisers don't want to advertise next to, then, well, we have to turn advertising off for that account. That's really what, no, sometimes we'll incorrectly do, but that's kind of how it works. So if advertisers complain about an account, we will turn off advertising for that account.
So it's advertiser based, not platform based. Is that correct?
That's at least that's the intent. We may make mistakes here, but removing advertising is simply at the request of advertisers. That's why when somebody complains about, when I receive some complaints about so-called demonetization, I say, well, if you can find advertisers that want to advertise next to your content, please let us know. And then usually I get no response. So I'm like, okay, well, that's the problem right there. That doesn't mean that people can still subscribe to that users. They have not been completely demonetized. They can still get subscription revenue, but we obviously cannot force advertisers to advertise alongside content that you don't wish to advertise them to.
And one more thing, Catherine, if you don't mind. When will Spaces be monetized? Like, Catherine should be making $1 billion off this space right now. Why? When do you think, or do you think that X will monetize Spaces?
Well, there is some monetization that occurs because of some degree of monetization that occurs. The space is saved, and then there's advertising that appears below the space link. There's some amount of that occurs. I mean, to do it real time, we would have to interrupt the space for advertising, just like TV programs. So I don't know if that's going to be great. Like for saved spaces, we could add mobile events periodically. That would be a way to monetize it. I guess, that's something we can look at doing.
Thanks. So we'll go to the best of audio, live audio.
Hey, Catherine, this is Adam, and I love the space as always. Elon, quick question for you. It's an AI question. So I'm going to be talking with Sam Altman and recording a podcast that's coming Monday. And I'm, of course, excited to talk about all things OpenAI and the new sword technology and news with Andre moving on. But what are you focused on with AI within your world at the moment? What's exciting you for AI right now?
Well, I mean, OpenAI should be called maximum profit AI, since that is currently what it is. I came up with the name OpenAI because it was supposed to be open source, but they are not open source, nor is it non-profit anymore. So I do find it odd that, it is now maximum profit closed source. And I still don't know what Iliad saw or what made him react so negatively. So I have some lingering concerns there. For XAI, we want to try to create a maximum. I'm actually curious, I think OpenAI is, not to overuse the term, but somewhat woke in its responses, and will often refuse to give answers, or will reply in a way it seems like it's scolding you or even asking the question. Whereas, we want to be more like Grok wants to be like, based GPT, like a default. And also we want to be the funniest guy on the internet. And I think we might already be there. If you have the choice of using one AI or another, why not use the one that'll give you a few laughs along the way? And really, Grok version 1 was done with very few people and very little resources. So Grok 1.5 coming out will be a lot better. We'll be able to understand images, generate images when we're in a lift. So I think we'll quite rapidly catch up to OpenAI. And I think there's some value to there being multiple players in the AI space. You don't want it to be just a monopoly or a duopoly. So I think that's probably good. Like we used to have over the door of OpenAI, there's a quote that I always like from Lord Acton, which is that liberty consists in the division of power, whereas absolutism consists in the concentration of power. So I think to the degree that there is division of power, we have a freer society than it is concentrated. Now, the table stakes for being competitive in AI are simply rising rapidly. So it's not like anyone just to world-class AI and, using a GPU in their basement type of thing. It's kind of getting to the point where this year it's probably at least single-digit billions in hardware to have a seat at the adult table rather than the kiddie table. And next year, it's probably in the tens of billions of hardware to remain at the sort of the adult table rather than the kiddie table. So anyway, but I think we'll try to be a good AI. All of this, I guess I'm sure people say like, well, I guess AI is somewhat alien language of its creator. Well, in whose image, if that is true, in whose image would you want the AI to be made? What should think about that?
Sorry, I'm very sorry. I know your name, but at this moment I am blanking, and all you have are emojis.
Yeah, we probably do need to add more than simply emojis here. It's hard to divine what somebody's saying just from an emoji.
Well, she literally has her whole name made out of.
I think it's Solly Sods, right? That's the at. Okay.
Yeah.
So my name is Solmaz. Thank you. And I removed my name because of what was talked. Catherine, thank you. And now I'm just known as the airplane. Oh.
Catherine, I can't hear her.
I think she's bragging a little bit.
Yeah, that might be it. I'm having a lot of issues with this space in general.
There's so many people and so many requests that I think that it's glitching. Hey, Elon, not Jerome Powell would like to know if you still love his printer.
Well, that printer's going to keep going no matter what. Yeah. I mean, how many dollars will it be ultimately? A lot. And at some point, the chickens are going to come home to roost on the national debt. In fact, might be our only hope out of the crushing burden of national debt that we're building.
He did promise to print me $1 billion if I asked you that question. So we're going to hold him to it. Or you can.
I'm sure that's worth a lot of money.
Right?
Sarah. So much money.
Elon, if he does not give me $1 billion, will you commit?
Don't agree to anything. This is just my.
Will you commit to banning his account if he doesn't give me $1 billion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ooh. Okay, this got spicy. I am curious to see how that resolves itself. Now he is. I'm sorry, Mr. Printing Press. Your account is soon to be banned unless you pay up. I'll take a split.
Yes, I do owe Catherine.
She owes me everything.
So wait, is my mom on the call or not?
I saw her.
Well, I saw her and I invited her.
She's still here. I can see her down there in the.
Yeah. So is she not wanting to come up? Because I sent her an invite. It could just be a glitch too, because I tried to get you a good science question, Elon, and I can't seem to bring that particular person up either. So it might just be a glitch kind of situation.
There's like 1,000 requests.
Breaking the request list.
I'm Catherine. I'm on AirPods. I'm in the middle of nowhere right now, so my cell phone or my cell reception is bad. But thank you so much, and I'll make this really quick. I have 3 questions, and I'll ask them quick, and feel free to answer in whatever order you want. 1, 3. I'll make it very quick. 1,
let's do 1.
Elon, do you have Catherine's book, and is it signed?
I swear, nothing to do with that.
I think so.
Okay, well, you could.
I'm going to use my X revenue to get you one. That's what I'm going to do.
That cloud chasing.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I will send him a book should he want the book. I did not know. Oh, this was not my.
She made me buy the book, and you're just sending Musk over here a book for free.
I like my mom is there.
Of course, but I'll sign it.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. That's Elon's mom.
Yes, and I've woken my dog because we're in New York, and now he thinks I said hello to someone at the door.
Well, have you heard this guy that sounds just like me?
The Chinese guy?
I am
There's another one.
There's another one. Yes, I did hear that too, and I thought it was somebody else that is using AI to use your voice.
Else. I'm trying to bring him back up. I just did him. Yeah.
It does sound like an AI voice emulator.
Can we do a contest and see if your mom can tell you guys apart? If you guys can tell them apart. Okay.
This is so weird. I can't.
Was that your son, or was that not?
But it's he's going through a mega something.
Gene, can you stop a mega thing?
I'd have to disconnect whatever I'm using. So, like the microphone is like it's a weird device. It's like a bone conduction thing. It's quite old.
That sounds like you. Now that's you.
I'm a very early adopter.
Wait, that was not me. That was in fact Adrian.
What?
Oh God.
My mom can't even tell.
Your own mother cannot tell you apart.
That'll be good on Mother's Day.
It's a good good imitation. I don't know how you did
Oh,
that.
hell. I don't know how I do it either. I just simply exist. That's bad enough.
It's not even an imitation. I think that's literally just how Adrian sounds every day.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It's actually a result of cognitive dissonance. I'm actually German, and I learned English through the BBC World Service, and then I learned the remainder of it through social interactions with people in America. I hung out a lot with, video games or whatever. So at some point, I hit this level where I basically mixed all of them together. You have a little bit of the German there, you have the British, you have the American. It all kind of mixes together, and I guess it creates this. And at some point, my voice drops. Like it's some really weird stuff that pieces this together over time. Because like before if you are a person who is like on the spectrum like that, your brain is very unstable in the early stages of your life. And so in order to make it more stable, you need to manufacture your own structure. And so part of that is language and expression. And so merging all of the abstract elements of the accent together created this kind of weird thing that then, helps with the expression of, words, right?
Ja, das war. Aber ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch hören, wann die sprechen.
Also sehr, sehr gut. Kannst du mich verstehen?
Ja. Anna kann mich verstehen, wann ich spreche langsam.
Alles gut, alles gut. Sehr gut. Actually really good.
Ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. Ich habe
Your son,
Semester im Universität.
your son. You can start over. Make some changes.
Yeah,
It's like a blank. It's like a blank check.
Voice. But sometimes there's a bit of a German accent coming out.
You got the hardcore South African. I know a few friends are South African. One of them, he's a guy who does agriculture. Really interesting dude. He does hydroponics. I love this guy. Yeah, he's cool. He has the exact accent that you have. Tells me a lot of interesting stories about the country. Yeah. A lot of positive stuff too, which I really appreciate.
Okay. It's fine. It's good. I mean,
so what do you think now?
Like, Mom, how does this?
I was about to ask that.
Yeah.
How trippy is it?
Are you freaked out?
Can a mother tell?
Well, if you keep on talking, I will see where you just go off the accent, into a bit of a German accent. So then I'll know it's not Elon. But pretty much you sound like Elon.
It's bizarre. It's like an AI voice simulator.
Yeah, that's what
I could do.
Sounds like.
Elon, I can do your earnings calls for you.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
You get a particularly dry question, just tell me what not to say.
No, I think that'll be very entertaining.
It's going to be quite funny. It was me and Adrian and that Chinese guy I still don't know if that Chinese guy is actually real or AI generated. But if he's real, then the three of us on stage could really just be a total acid trip.
Yeah, I think.
Just be like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, I think it'll be very amusing and fascinating.
I think that's a space that should be done. And I think we should have all sorts of impersonators on the space and the real people talking to I think that would be.
That's a thought.
That one right there is one feature I don't like, is the soundboard.
Elon!
Did not expect Brian of
Elon, please.
Serious.
Remove the soundboard. I beg you.
Please make it individually adjustable, like with Discord, right? You can actually,
Let that host.
The soundboard's pretty funny.
It is, if used correctly, yeah.
He's not being
Perhaps like that, yeah. Well, what kind of beans did you have? Yeah, that's definitely Taco Bell, for sure. Yeah, that's Taco Bell.
I love how I brought on video that I thought was going to be serious and sciencey, and this is what we get.
It's got the toilet flushing sound and a fart sound.
It's the remix sound.
And then you had the dog sound.
Pre and post.
There is a dog sound. There is a dog sound, Mrs. Musk. It's the only good one.
Yeah, now he's staring at.
Is that a real dog?
Like the siren. The siren is the worst thing ever. It's so beautiful. I had this once at a debate, and I dropped something, and all of a sudden, everybody started spamming the soundboards. It was the funniest shit ever. I wish I had recorded it, but then, yeah. Oh, God. He became the druid now. Yeah.
What is that?
Oh, my God. Sound like you're inside the Starship.
Yeah.
Now you sound like a balloon.
Yes. This is a helium balloon voice transformer.
Do you actually have a helium balloon on you right now?
Yeah, I'm using the alien balloon voice
Oh, God. Okay, now I'm back to normal.
Elon,
Yeah, sure.
Elon, will you
Sure, back to normal.
can you say, just for Catherine Brodsky's benefit, that this is the best space you've ever been in?
It's the best space I've ever been in.
Thank you.
It was Elon.
Wow.
It was pretty fun and entertaining. And yeah.
Catherine, can I ask?
Now we went from like a serious converse to like really random questions to helium balloons and sound-alikes.
Yes. So, yeah, quite the journey there.
We really,
I could do dialogue.
really quite the journey.
Mrs. Musk,
This is an adventure.
Mrs. Musk, is Elon too old to be grounded to his room for abusing these voices?
I don't think I've sent him to a room since he was, I don't know. How often did I send you to a room, Elon?
It's never
Pretty
too late
rare.
to start.
And if I did, it
Never
would
too
be
late to
because
start.
you had lots to read. You were always happy to read, so that was fine. And then video games.
Was he a
Did he ever blow anything
rebellious
up?
teenager? Was he a good teenager? Was he a rebellious teenager?
No, he was good, but he would fall off roofs and out of trees. He would fall out of trees, yeah.
How is it a punishment to send a teenager to their room? They just play video games. They love to be in their room.
Yeah, but he was,
Well, who knows what else?
there
they
weren't
do.
video games in his time, really.
Well, there weren't video games that you could play in my room. There wasn't.
Tetris.
One had to use a TV, so there's only one TV.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in my room.
Options. Who had
You made your own own video game at 12 years old, and when I showed it to the engineers at the university, they said, "Wow, he knows all the shortcuts." And I thought, okay.
I only had like 8K of RAM, so not much to play with.
What was the video game, Elon? What was the
Black Star.
Yeah, it's a space video game where you're fighting off an alien spaceship. I like Space Invaders, but more of a one-on-one duel. So I guess
Why
I
don't-
displayed an early interest in space. Sometimes people are like, were you always interested in space? Well, I did. First video game that I actually sold for money was, in fact, a space video game. So that suggests an early interest in space.
And then you got
Did you ever?
fired for it, but they didn't know you were, but it was published when you were 13. Yeah.
But then I didn't actually have a bank account, so then I didn't get a bank account. So yeah, I didn't know I was a kid. So
Did you ever blow anything up?
sure, I'll blow up lots of things.
Yeah.
Nice,
But he did-
nice.
I didn't see it, of course, because I'd go crazy if that happened.
I think
Yeah.
everyone does that at some point in their lives. I blew up a rock once just because it was a bad idea.
I set a fire to a playground. This was probably not a good idea in retrospect.
I can totally
yeah.
see that.
Okay.
I could see Catherine setting fire to the playground.
Love that stuff.
Catherine, can I read your book to Elon?
Oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, very kind of you guys to pimp my book, but I feel bad.
Well, I think
That's all-
yeah. I mean, I think
I'm sorry, that was an opener, and I really want.
Right. So go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll go to Brian.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, hi, Elon. Question, I'm a woman, and I'm sure you've gotten this question plenty of times. I've seen you somewhat respond to it, but the Iranian community is wondering why certain accounts that basically sponsored by the Islamic Republic that call for the active genocide of not just Iranians themselves, but Jewish people and the destruction of the state of Israel. Why are they allowed to be because here's the thing, people in Iran aren't allowed to use Twitter, I'm sorry, X, sorry. So people are not allowed to use this app, but the government itself actively uses it and oppresses people, especially when they cut off the internet, when they're doing executions. So we're just wondering, what would it take to remove these accounts from this platform?
Any accounts which call for, unequivocally call for violence or death, which is obviously illegal, are supposed to be suspended. So if they're not being suspended, that's an oversight. Now, we do have what we call a sort of a UN exemption, which is that if it's a recognized government, let's say the Ayatollah, who is able to say these things at the UN, then we do allow them on the platform for the same reason that we sort of have generally agreed that it's better to have the UN than not to have the UN, although some may disagree with me on that. Because sometimes you want to sort of understand what is their real position. If people are uncertain as to whether, say, Iran wants the annihilation of Israel, well, you can just go look at the Ayatollah's account. He's pretty clear that they do in fact want that. But apart from the sort of UN exemption of somebody's a recognized leader by the UN of the country, which means we allow them to come to New York, even if they're under sanctions, and say all sorts of outrageous things at the podium in the UN, then in the interest of facilitating global some kind of dialogue, we do allow them to be on the system. And obviously, if we apply the rule of, well, if any politician says outrageous things, that they get suspended, well, we're suspending a lot of American politicians too. Lindsey Graham keeps wanting to bomb Iran and many other places, for example, but we don't suspend him.
Thank you. I mean, I understand. We just, other platforms that have banned them, and I understand the situation that platforms such as this would be. But when we do see active calls of destruction of people, and then other people follow along with it, it's somewhat, the question arises of why is a world leader calling the destruction of not only a community, but an entire country, and also the denial of the Holocaust itself. And so we're just hoping that maybe something can be done. Maybe the verification can go away. Maybe they can be monitored, because they do have a lot of their own employees on the account as well. They have around 250,000 cyber battalion, cyber army people that do troll this platform and do get a lot of us reported, and smear campaigns go on. And earlier there was a conversation around doxing, which is we have tried reporting all of these and nothing really happens. And these accounts are continuously going on doxing and smear campaigns, not just on public figures, but on individuals such as myself or others that, our lives could be in danger. Our families that actually are in Iran can be in danger. So I appreciate you taking time to answer that, but I hope that maybe there can be a little bit more structure around that and a little bit more attention to people that, for example, I know you mentioned a couple of months ago calling for, a call to genocide of From the River to the Sea calls for active suspension. And there are people that are still doing it to this day. So I appreciate everything you're doing. I know that you've done a lot for the Iranian community, but it is an ask from us to maybe try and monitor certain accounts that have large followings that actively put people's lives in danger.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I will look into it. It's not always easy. Obviously, it's easier to review things that are in English. If they are in Farsi, it's a little harder. But the rules of the platform are certainly that, calling for the death or destruction of individuals or nations is illegal. And we're still in suspension, with the exception of the UN rule, which is that if somebody is a recognized world leader and can say it at the UN, then we do allow them to say it on the platform, for the same reason that we allowed the UN to, the UN General Assembly to gather in New York and say outrageous things. It's not a clear-cut situation, but probably better than not having any contact from them. So, all right, cool. Well, I think it's probably time to wrap this up.
Do you mind if we go to a last question and then we'll wrap up?
This is Brian Keating, a professor of physics at UC San Diego. I got 2 physics questions I'm hoping you can answer or chime in on. So I study the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is the afterglow of the Big Bang, which was discovered 60 years ago or so. And this radiation is thermal in origin, and we are applauding your efforts in the astronomy community to make the Starlink satellites dark for optical astronomy. But we microwave astronomers who use signals, we're trying to detect this afterglow of inflationary gravitational waves in Q-band, essentially in Q-band. And there's really no way to block out a 1,000,000 Kelvin equivalent signal that you're transmitting with Starlink. I'm wondering, is there any way we could work with you and from the South Pole or Chile, where our observatories are located, to have selective availability or some way? Because once this channel is gone, we'll never get it back. And this is, potentially precluding a view into the, inflationary origin of the cosmos. So I know it's very important to you, and we're appreciative of the astronomy efforts in optical astronomy, but microwave is a totally different ballgame.
Sure. I do think long-term, the right place for telescopes or really any receiver is in orbit, or basically space, so you don't have experience from Earth. And as Starship starts launching, we can have some pretty big telescopes or photon receivers.
10-meter diameter telescopes. So pretty hard to put, and they don't really unfold the way that Webb would. But I mean, I think it would be something that selective availability. I'm basically blanking it over the South Pole. We only have 2 locations on Earth where we would need to have it unobstructed.
Okay.
Is there someone?
Would you say you basically just stop transmitting just over these?
Yeah, the 2 observatories. Yeah, in the Atacama Desert in Chile at 17,000 feet, and the South Pole, Antarctica, which is a place we'd love to take you. By the way, Simons Observatory, Jim Simons funded it, and the NASA Science Foundation funds the South Pole Observatory called BICEP. And then so if you have any resources you could put me in touch with, it would be
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk to the Song team about this. We have a technical update every week, so I'll ask about any obscuration and microwave spectrum in Atacama and Antarctica. So yeah, we don't wish to in any way impede the progress of science.
That would be awesome. Thank you, Elon. I have one more question just related to physics and AI and related to Catherine's book, which brought us all here together tonight. So Catherine, congratulations, Mazel Tov on the book. So the book's called No Apologies. One of the things I hate most about ChatGPT, woke GPT is, you'll ask it some question. I'll say, what did Brian Keating write? And I'll say, losing the Nobel Prize, correct. Into the Impossible, correct. And then it'll say, A Brief History of Time. No, that's not correct. And I'll say, no, that's not right. I didn't write. That's Stephen Hawking. And then it'll say, oh, I apologize. I apologize. I hate that. I want the Catherine Brodsky no apologies. But it made me think about a true Turing test. And I want to get your opinion on. I've asked Nick Bostrom and David Chalmers and your greatest ideas and thinkers, Peter Diamandis, our mutual friend. I said, do you know what Einstein called his happiest thought, Elon, that gave him shivers and titillated him? Do you know what he said that was? He said, yeah, it's PG, don't worry. He said, he said it was that an observer in free fall would experience no gravitational force. And it made me think, because to what extent could a computer or some silicon or even quantum computer, could it even have either a happiest thought or B, experience the sensation, a visceral sensation of free fall? So I'm wondering if we could propose another, kind of Turing test, a different definition of AGI, which would be actually coming up with new laws of physics or new complete paradigms of physics rather than just, physics is a base layer of reality. I mean, you always quote that, right? So to what extent could we redefine AI as when it becomes generally intelligent, when it can experience happy thoughts, free fall, and other things like that? So curious about your thoughts.
Well, I think you can certainly have AI would not realize it's in a simulation, which may be the case for us right now, and that would have a true physics engine and fall in a way that a human would fall, and thus experience sensations in the same way. I do think there are the simulation hypothesis does explain some elements of quantum mechanics, such as only collapsing the probability distribution when you look at something. Like, why would something be only true when you look at it? Well, if it's rendering in real time, then that's actually how a video game works. Like if you're in a video, like let's say you're in World of Warcraft or something, and you walk through a forest and there's a rat and a rat appears. But before that, was there a rat or not a rat? There was only a probability of a rat, and the rat only became real when you looked in that direction. That collapsed the probability space, and the rat appeared. So I think projection theory actually explains a lot of things that seem quite mysterious, the Schrodinger's cat situation.
But it requires infinite compute, right? Because they could always say who simulates the simulator, infinite regress, right?
It does beg the question of where is the simulator running? Yeah, and it may be that you have a whole series of nested simulations, but at some point there is the unit thing.
But ultimately, the physical reality, I mean, all these things are going to be running on a rocky planet somewhere, right? That doesn't have infinite copper. It doesn't have infinite mineral density to retrieve. So, I mean, there are planetary limits to growth, as, the Club of Rome would call it. Don't those provide, I mean, you can't imagine, changing the physical reality of an Earth-like planet. You can't imagine these simulations running on something very different from an Earth-like planet. It's not going to run on a Boltzmann brain. So at some level, it needs physical reality. And so, again, you can't break the laws of physics. So how does it get around the planetary resource problem? You can't make an infinite number of paper clips on a finite planet.
I don't know if you really need that much. Like it's not really like the universe may seem infinite to us, but frankly, if I was creating a simulation of this reality, I would put the stars far enough away that we do not have to simulate the details of the planets. And in fact, that is the situation. So you really just have to simulate with high fidelity what is observed on our planet. A much easier task than trying to simulate local reality. And I was joking that, when the James Webb telescope went up, that maybe the reason for the delays was that the simulators needed to bring more computers online, because now that we can see further, they needed to improve the fidelity of their simulation. So like their equivalent of Amazon Web Services or something.
I'd like to add that I don't think German Elon voice could answer in the same way as Elon did.
Yeah, there's a gap. There's a true knowledge gap. He's older than me.
There's a difference in the simulations, like, they're not exact. There's irregularities. They don't quite match up.
I think there needs to be. It's like art.
Yeah. If I wasn't at least
Well, I
pretty good
think
at
it-
physics, then the rockets would explode and the cars wouldn't work. Because physics is a very harsh judge. I mean, I like to say that, physics is the law and everything else is recommendation, meaning that, you can't break physics, but plenty of people can break the law. And if you're breaking physics, you're either wrong or you need a Nobel Prize, but most likely you're wrong.
Elon, can I ask you a question as a father of half as many kids as you have?
Sure.
So I've heard it said, you want to die on Mars. And our mutual friend, Lord Martin Rees, said, I just hope it's not on impact. And I agree with that. Being a father, you've got that cute kid probably right next to you. I mean,
He's on my
would you
shoulders
take-
right now.
Yeah. I mean, but you have other kids too. And to say goodbye to a child is, I don't have to tell you that. It's the most painful thing you could ever imagine. But wouldn't you have to? I mean, wouldn't that be kind of the ultimate, going away on a business trip if you were to do that? I mean, I don't know. I find it hard to go away on a trip, but I know you take your kids with you. I got one of my girls right here with me right now, and she doesn't want to go to bed. I mean, what would you do? I mean, could you really say goodbye to some of your kids or some of the people you love, maybe your mom, and never see her again?
Well, I don't want to say goodbye. I mean, we'll
I think we don't have to worry about that for a few more years.
Okay.
I think so too. Plus, maybe they'll want to come on the trip, right? You don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe it'd be quicker, so you can come back if you want.
Yes, you fear a lot of things in your life, but most don't happen.
That's very true.
Very true.
Thank you, Elon.